All right, welcome everybody to another fun Tim video. But tonight I have a guest, Harmony Ginger, who has her own channel here on YouTube that is now growing and has surpassed mine. So you must be doing something right. Uh, you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Harmony Ginger. That is Harmony_Ginger on YouTube or at Ginger Blast on Twitter. I just post a lot about my opinions on RPGs. Um, yeah, that's basically it.
Which I find your opinions interesting because they routinely will set one third of the RPG world annoyed at any given time.
Hmm.
And there's like one third that's annoyed, one third that agrees with you, and one third like me that's just eating popcorn watching the fight that goes on in the middle. So but it's always fun and it's always kind of an interesting discussion when you're around. So but I wanted to talk a little bit about both RPGs and fiction. And I don't mean fiction from like the English literature perspective. I mean Isaac Asimov, Tom Clancy, Stephen King level fiction, stuff that most people actually read. Because we all read English literature in college because somebody forced us to, but I don't know too many people that actually pick up, you know, Dante's Inferno after that and actually reread it. I might be the only one. That's just because I'm weird. But so one of the things I wanted to ask you is as a writer myself, I always when I describe a character, I kind of just give general physical descriptions. Like, okay, it's a boy, he's tall, he's pudgy, right? I never really go too much further than that. And when I describe women, I kind of do it the same way. I'm like, tall, maybe I give a hair color, I give a name, and I kind of just move on, right? I don't really put too much into it, and I kind of leave that up to readers' imagination. And I notice a lot of modern authors do that. I don't read a lot of romance novels, so it's a whole different world. But in the sort of thriller, action, horror space, at least the modern authors seems to kind of go that way. But I was rereading some books from the 70s and 80s, and I noticed some things that kind of caused me to kind of step back and go, maybe there is something to the argument that we've gotten things wrong in the past and maybe they're improving. And what I mean by that is I was reading this one series of books by a sci-fi author, and when he described a man, he would go on for like 5 words. And when he described a woman, he would go on for a paragraph and a half about different body features and how this is disproportionate to that, and that doesn't quite look the way it should. And I was just like, who goes in that kind of detail about a character? I mean, have you ever seen anything like that in the fiction space?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, I think it really has to do with a man describing a woman. Like men are more critical. Men look more into women than they do other men.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think you can see the reverse is true as well. If you read something, and I know I don't know how your audience is going to feel about me referencing this series, but if you read something like Twilight, you will
Mhm.
see the exact reverse is true, and that the main character of Twilight is given very little description, and she's mostly an empty husk, whereas the male love interest is given like a half page to a page of how beautiful his skin is and how piercing his eyes are. Like you can really see it. It just depends on the preferences of the author, to be honest. I don't think there's a whole lot more to it than that.
Well, it's interesting because when I got out of the one I was talking about was Isaac Asimov. He got really weird and about especially at one point in his career about describing women, in particular, the sort of top half of women, and it just he would go on for a long time, and I'm like, okay, I get it, dude. You're just weird, but at some point I was just like, okay, this is just bizarre. But Tom Clancy was the one that got me a couple of days ago. I was rereading one of his old ones, The Cardinal of the Kremlin, which is about the intelligence agencies going back and forth, and the CIA used this one asset named Mary Pat Foley, who was in one of the movies, but kind of in passing, but plays a much larger role in some of the books. And the reason they picked her was that she didn't look smart. And when asked, what does that mean? They actually went into, well, she's short, she has glasses, she's kind of, she's a mom, she just doesn't look smart. And I was like,
Wait, having glasses makes you not look smart? I was under
well,
the impression that the reverse is true. I thought they
well,
added like an imaginary 10 IQ points.
well, this is 1986, right? So it's a completely
Okay.
different world.
Okay.
It might have been 88, but it was in the 80s somewhere. It was in his sort of earlier part of his career. And remember, Tom Clancy was sort of from the 1940, I think he was born in late 40s, early 50s somewhere. So it was a much different kind of attitude than what you see today. But they, how can you just look at any, and I've seen this in my life, right? So I've seen this in real life where somebody will look at somebody else and go, wow, they just don't look smart. And I'm like, how, as a society, because fiction, in my opinion, reflects society, right? It kind of reflects our societal views in some ways. How can somebody look at another human being and go, they're smart, they're not? That makes no sense to me. It has nothing to do with appearance. And I couldn't think of an example in fiction where a man was ever described as not looking smart. That just kind of drove me a little bit over the edge.
I mean, I'm going to say just because you can't think of an example doesn't mean they don't exist. Though offhand, you bringing this up right now, I'm hard pressed to think of one. But I can't think of a woman that was described as not looking smart either offhand. This is just very on the spot.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I mean,
I like to do that, folks, so I get actual reactions from people.
right. I mean, we all have to play the cards we're dealt,
Mhm.
and not looking smart isn't the end all. A lot of people assume different things about me than are true just because of my appearance sometimes. And
Ah,
I mean,
yes. And we can
it
dispel some of the
is.
rumors. Harmony is not a giant. Um, she's she's not a specter. What was the other one? You do have a soul, and you're not undead, I think was one I saw one day. So
I think those are some of the rumors, yeah. Um, and I thank you for being so confident as to dispel them on stream.
uh, I never thought giant was really in the cards, but that's sort of is what it is. I'm 6'4", so nobody next to me is a giant. Every once in a while I find somebody taller than me, but it's not too common. Okay, so let's go over to the RPG space. In RPGs, what would you think is the what would can you think of a character in the RPG space that is like the one you think is that's the right way to describe women? I
I
always love
mean,
putting people on the spot. It gets the best answers.
right, right. I'm gonna look very dumb here because I'm having trouble thinking of of descriptions that were given of women. Like I can name women and
Okay,
in
so
the RPG space, but I can't think of like how they're described
so let's
initially, to be
let's go to like
honest.
streaming. So some of the stuff that's come out that's like RPG, even video games gone to streaming. So like out the Fallout. I was going to say Outcast, but it's a rock group, not a streaming series. Fallout. Lucy McLean, right, in the Fallout series. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Would
Mhm.
you think that was a reasonable way to kind of describe women or to portray women in one of those the RPG spaces?
Um, in what way? I mean, she's fairly conventionally attractive, but I think that's what they were going for.
Mhm.
I believe Fallout, the lore of Fallout is the bombs dropped after something like in the 1950s.
Yeah,
Is that about right? So
yeah. Bombs dropped in 50. It's been
she was
underground
very like
forever. Yeah,
1950s
yeah.
traditional attractive woman. I She was quite naive. No, she wasn't the naive one, the guy was. Oh gosh. If you wanna talk about how badly she was portrayed,
Mhm.
the guy was so much worse. What was his name? Max? Oh,
Yeah. Walter. That
yeah,
was
so I
Maximus.
think
Yeah,
they were
Max.
trying to play up her naivety having
Mhm.
been in the vault, but no matter how much they did it, they were never going to make her appear worse than Max. I'm just gonna say.
Well,
But then again, I wasn't a big fan of the Fallout TV series. I didn't like it at all, honestly. Um,
okay. Well, the thing I liked about that one is um so often you see characters both men and women these days, although historically it was always women, that somebody had to come along and rescue. They were just kind of too, they couldn't figure out how to like, get out of something on their own. They just weren't capable of doing it. And I found with Fallout, Lucy, who's played by Ella Purnell, um, was very confident and she got herself into trouble, but that she'd kind of figure out a way out of it or she'd get some help to get her out of it. And I think Max, for all of his faults, kind of did the same thing. So I thought I liked Fallout a little bit better than most just because it kind of nobody was really that person in total distress that needed rescuing. And I think that's, part of what we tend to do in fiction is we're like, okay, this person has to be rescued because they can't survive on their own, and we got to bring in somebody else to come fix it, right? I kind of, in that particular series, I kind of enjoyed the fact that everybody was confident and everybody had a different skill set they brought to the table. Lucy was sort of the more, let me figure this out. And Max was sort of the, okay, you tell me what to do and I'll figure out how to make it work. Hello, kitty cat. Um,
Yeah, she was rubbing against my mic. Um, I mean, it seems like you have a problem with the traditional story of the brave male warrior rescues the female damsel in distress. Um, and I mean, it's a classic for a reason.
mhm,
I think a lot, man. I got to be careful what I say about this. I think a lot of women can resonate with that as well as men.
mhm,
Like it is a female fantasy to be rescued by a strong, brave warrior.
mm.
And this isn't just a male empowerment fantasy. It is a female fantasy as well here. I think, and of course, there have always been strong women in fiction. Like this isn't like every single story was like this in the past. It's
Mm.
not how it is. There have always been strong, independent women in fiction as well. But it, but I think the it seems to be that people see a traditional damsel in distress, conventionally attractive, just beautiful woman, and they see it as an attack on strong, independent women who want to be the brave warrior, right? But I don't see that as true. I think there's room for both.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong in my eyes with having a beautiful princess who needs to be rescued. Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Okay. So what do you think about the current one where I think it was Bridgerton came out with a heavyset woman and a really in shape guy, and people are like, oh, we're not ready for the mixed weight couples yet. King of Queens, and I could think of 50 examples where it's like an overweight guy and a beautiful woman. Everybody's okay with that. But now we have the overweight woman and the nice looking guy, and everybody's like, wait, we can't do that. You know.
Who cares? I mean, people like what they like. I
Mhm,
don't watch Bridgerton. I don't have a problem with any sort of couple getting together.
mhm.
I mean, if they're both adults and they're happy, like I don't care.
See, that's my take on it, right? Because so much of life, people worry about what other people think. And I think far too often as a society, we're like, okay, I have to do, if I'm going to do this, what is that person over there going to think about it or that person over there? And I think we spend far too much time worrying about that. And I think it impacts everybody's personal, certainly stress level and perhaps happiness to some level, because if you're not making yourself happy, what difference does any of it make? Right. So
Exactly. Who am I to judge anyone else's relationship?
I
I
know,
don't
right?
care.
I personally am kind of tired of about hearing about all kinds of other people's relationships. I just don't care. I mean, good for you, happy for you, but we
Right.
don't have to like advertise it. So
You can look
okay.
in real life, and there are plenty of examples of larger women and skinnier men. Like it happens. Sometimes people gain weight after marriage. Sometimes people fall in love based on other things. Sometimes people have a preference for people who are larger. It's just how it is.
It is. And honestly, in my personal life, and I'll talk about this a little bit, and I'm not going to ask you to talk about yours, but I personally, my list of preferences in who I'm going to go out with, that's about number 12. Right behind it respects me for who I am, actually isn't going to kind of come in and try to change me into something I'm not, all that kind of crap. So
Sure.
all those sorts of things I think are far more important. And like you said, it does happen in real life. Like Pierce Brosnan and his wife, if you've seen pictures of them, Pierce Brosnan is of course a former James Bond, but he and his wife have been together like 30 plus years, and she had multiple kids. And yes, she's not in the shape she used to be in. And I've seen people like, oh my God, what's he doing with her? I'm like, I don't know. They've been together for like 3.5 decades. Maybe there's something more there than you think. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
and I
not just about
guarantee.
what she looks like.
Yeah, and I guarantee if he left her for a younger, prettier woman, there would be hell to pay for that as well. Like, I mean, if you're a man and you're married to a woman who becomes larger after she has kids, which by the way, a lot of women become larger after
Mhm.
they have kids, your metabolism slows down. It's hard to
Well,
deal with on that side too, I would think.
as you
But
get
I
older, everybody's
mean,
metabolism shifts, right?
sure,
And mine has. I mean, I'm 52 and mine's
sure.
certainly different than it was.
I mean, I don't think any man marries a beautiful woman with the expectation that she's going to look exactly like that forever. That's
Might there are a
ridiculous.
few actually might. Um, okay, well, so this is the kind of stuff. Thank you for this. This actually kind of helps me sort this out in my head because sometimes I look at things differently than most people do. And I wonder if I'm starting to ride it off the rails or if this actually kind of helps me, because we all have this sort of social media thing we do. And sometimes you see stuff in it, and I'm going to throw one up on the screen for you, that sometimes you see people say stuff and you're like, that is so colossally stupid. I can't even begin to talk about it. It's like, I found this picture of the Cybertruck over on Facebook. So if you think this is cool, if you think this is a cool and beautiful truck, I do not want to see the photo of the woman in your life if you have one. So, you see stuff like that, and I did exactly what you did. I kind of shook my head for a minute, going, "What the hell is wrong with you?" It's, go ahead. You look like you have something on that
I
one.
mean, yeah, I can't say I've ever I've ever changed my mind on a guy based on his car. That's never happened. But I mean, yeah, the car's kind of ugly, not gonna lie. Um,
Have you seen
I
one
got
in
nothing
real?
else to say about that.
Have you seen
No,
what?
I haven't seen one. No,
They are shockingly smaller than you'd think they'd be.
really.
They are a lot smaller. I have two cars. I have a Land Rover and I have a Mazda 5. I pulled up next to one in my Mazda 5, which is like a kid mobile, and it was roughly the same size. So
Hmm.
they are a lot smaller than you think they are. So it kind of surprised me in a way. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. I know this is going to be kind of a quick one. You're used to doing much longer formats. I just wanted to ask a few questions,
Oh,
get them out there.
I thought we were.
I really don't have anything
We
else
were
to
gonna
ask
do
you.
much longer.
Um, I try to pre-record these and then put them out. I don't try to do live streams.
Sure.
And what I find is most people, and I hope everybody's still listening, likes the sort of 15 to 30-minute format when I'm doing that kind of stuff. And I think live streams are live streams. They're great for a purpose, but I think with these, people tend to like sort of shorter. So I try to keep it straight and to the point.
Okay.
That being said, if you haven't subscribed to Harmony's channel, it's a great channel to follow if you're into the RPG space. She is cutting edge there. And I'm quite sure when the new editions come out, you'll have a whole bunch of stay on that stuff too. So, uh, although you do prefer the older stuff, I see. But we'll see how it goes when it comes out. I
Well,
hear
thank
you're
you for
having
inviting me.
Richard. Have you having Richard Wick on this weekend? I think
Witters, Richard
Witters.
Witters.
Sorry.
Yeah, the artist. He's been on your channel. I've been on
Uh,
here with him.
yeah, I chatted with him earlier. Actually, sorry, I've been sick for a couple of days, so my brain is kind of melted. But okay, yeah, he's gonna be on your channel. I think Sunday. You said so.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to watch that. And other than that, everybody have a great weekend, and hope you had a good Fourth.